Ottawa and Alberta say they're taking another step forward in speeding up major projects with an agreement that would drop some of Ottawa's environmental and impact reviews and let Alberta do them alone. This is the draft of the deal released today. It says for projects in Alberta's jurisdiction, Canada will recognize Alberta as best placed to undertake an assessment and will rely on Alberta's process instead of also doing its own. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is framing the deal as putting the province in the driver's seat on project approvals, posting Alberta, not Ottawa, will take the lead. Premier Smith joins me now. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. This agreement is supposed to speed up big projects under your jurisdiction by going from 2 assessments to 1. The federal government says it will rely on your province when it comes to giving projects a green light. Are you going to be raising any provincial standards in order to meet federal standards?
Well, I can tell you that this is a culmination, I think, of a lot of negotiation, but a lot of years of battle, including all the way to the Supreme Court, where it was determined that projects that exist within the boundary of a province should be using provincial approval processes. So we're very pleased that the federal government has recognized that in spirit and in fact, and that our processes will take priority. We're going to, in fact, be looking at aligning our timeframes more along the lines of what we're seeing with the federal government do with their major projects office, so that we can ensure that there is a one-window approach and a rapid timeline to get major projects approved so that they're not languishing for years and years and years. And so we'll continue to work with the federal government in their areas of legitimate federal interests, which of course includes water, includes Indigenous consultation. But I think that this really restores the balance that was always envisioned in how our country should work in approving major projects.
But do any of the standards, are they going to have to change? Are they going to have to be increased to meet federal guidelines?
Well, I don't think that the length of time an approval takes is an indication of due diligence. I think if you're going to say no, you should say no quickly. And if you're going to say yes with conditions, you make sure those conditions are known quickly, and then you work through them one by one by one. I mean, I think that that's been part of the problem, is that with the approach that was taken under what had been called C-69, is that there didn't seem to be a pathway to even getting to a yes. And so this allows for us to take control over that process, provide some of that certainty, provide some of those timeframes. And we know our responsibility to the environment, to Indigenous nations, and to landowners as well as anyone. And so I feel very confident that this will at least give industry the certainty that they know that there's an approval process that they can rely on, there's an end in sight, and that we'll be working through the issues that get raised through the approvals.
A pipeline project would fall under federal jurisdiction. Is this, because of that, will that really speed things up?
I would say a cross-border pipeline project for sure, but anything that is fully within the borders of Alberta, we would anticipate not being able to have our process apply. But when it comes to the approval that we're looking for, which is the major new bitumen pipeline, million barrels a day to the Northwest BC coast, we know that that's a federal process. We're going to be submitting our application to the Major Projects Office in June, and we are hoping for an early answer from the federal government about being able to proceed on that.
On this announcement today, how much does it shift control from Ottawa to Alberta?
Well, I think it will depend on the project. I mean, when we have a pipeline network that we need to build out to facilitate getting natural gas to places within Alberta so that it can be used for AI data centers. And there's many, many projects of that type where we want to be able to use our own resources for the benefit of our own consumers and businesses. And at the moment, that is somewhat in dispute about who should make those decisions and what the process should be. So that would be one example. But I would say that the fact that we had to battle this out, that the federal government has recognized that whether it's in pipelines within our border or power plants within our border or other types of mining operations or other major projects, that they're going to give deference to the provincial approval process, and then we'll work together on the ones that go cross-border.
It is a well-known, established fact that there are some people in the province of Alberta who are very frustrated with the federal government. Do you think that, this sort of change will address some of those perhaps who are frustrated to the point that they want, support for separation from Canada?
Well, I can tell you that I think the frustration went to almost a boiling point after the Liberals won again last April. That's when I think you saw separatist sentiment rise to the highest level I've ever seen. It was polling at around 42%. But that's the reason why I and the Prime Minister took a lot of time to work out an MOU and identify the areas that were causing those pressures. And our MOU addressed 7 out of the 9 areas that I had identified. And now we're putting more detail around the implementation of that. This undoes, I mean, one of those bills was C-69, the fact that the federal government did not have a regulatory approval process that would lead to any kind of positive outcome, and we're interfering in our approvals. And what this does is it corrects in an agreement that they're going to be going back on that flawed approach. So these are the kind of things we need to do. We've already made great progress on reducing the or getting rid of the net zero power regs with a carve out so that we can start building power plants again to support our AI data center industry. We also saw the end of the emissions cap, which has a number of different pipeline proponents going forward saying that they want to do open season so that they can get more shippers lined up so that we can get more product to market northeast, south, and west. Those things wouldn't have happened without us working together on that. It's not the sum total of all of the grievances that Albertans have had with the previous 10 years of the way in which we've been governed and Ottawa has interfered, but a lot gets resolved when people can invest, when they can make money, when they can create jobs, when they can support their families. And that's why I think the Prime Minister and I are working together on that.
You mentioned the MOU, that agreement you reached with the Carney government back in November. It set out an April 1st deadline for some specifics to be sorted out, specifically around carbon pricing. April 1st is going to be here in a blink. So where do these negotiations stand right now?
Well, there's 5 agreements, and this is the first of 5. So you'll see in fairly short order the remaining 4 that will come to pass. I hope that we can get all 5 of them in place by April the 1st. There may be one that might take a little bit longer, but we're making very good progress on that. And I think it just shows the willingness on the part of the federal government to address these grievances for the benefit of all of us. I mean, it doesn't just help Alberta; it helps the entire country. If we can get these kind of major projects built and get our economy booming again, we benefit. But so does all of Canada. And so I think that we now, I think, have some understanding from Ottawa about why these bills that they had passed in the past were so problematic and to undo some of that damage. And so this, I think, is a down payment on what those next 4 are going to look like.
What happens if those, you mentioned the multiple agreements there, what happens if things aren't in place by April 1st?
Well, I'm an optimist. I think that the fact that we were able to get this one done, and we'll have another one to announce very soon, and then we still have another 6 weeks to work out the remainder. I think that the world changed when Donald Trump got elected in the United States, which I think created an urgency on the part of the federal government to start promoting some of the projects that we would be able to get built within Canada and find new markets. And I think that urgency has increased again with the conflict we're seeing in the Middle East, and the fact that we have a number of our friends and allies and trading partners that are now looking to try to find a replacement for some of that oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, it's bananas, really, that you've got a special deal being cut with India so they can buy product from Russia because they can't get it from their traditional partners, when we know that Russia's taking those proceeds to be able to fight a war in Ukraine. Canada doesn't have any of that baggage. We are a safe, reliable trading partner, and the more that we can help our friends and allies, the better it is for global peace and the better it is for the world.
I want to ask you about that. You describe friends, allies, and trading partners that are sort of in need of stability. Can you tell me what it's been like for you, for the province, and the energy sector in Alberta ever since this started less than a week ago?
Well, I can tell you that when we put our budget out, we were anticipating a long-term price of WTI averaging 61.50. It's why we had projected a substantial deficit, and it reversed almost, I think, 24 hours later. And so we're watching it with grave concern. I mean, I think we all want the conflict to come to an end as quickly as possible with minimal loss of life, but we also know that there's extreme hardship ahead if it doesn't. And you're going to, with the fields being shut in, with tankers not being able to move, with economies slowing down as a result of not being able to get these vital fuels. I hope it underscores for all Canadians that the ideological approach that took place in the past of, oh, shut it in, keep it in the ground, we won't want to develop it, that's not good for the world. And that's why we need to have more Alberta product making it to market.
Do you have to do anything different sort of in the days and weeks ahead because of what's going on with the war in Iran?
No, I don't think so. I think what we're going to do is what we have been doing, is making the case to our friends in the country that we have to get these projects in the ground and built, and I think we're well on our way.
Okay, Premier Smith, we'll leave the conversation there. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Katie.